I think, right now there's just a lot of legislation that is being pushed on the state level and
Hmm.
on the federal level that wouldn't necessarily be favorable to our industry as a whole. I know, particularly in Texas, I saw where yesterday Senator Lois Kolkhorst's proposed Bill 819 was passed through the Senate with a 22-9 vote, which was concerning because
Yeah.
of the ramifications that can have for solar and storage in Texas. We also just went through Senate Bill 388, which said that storage was not dispatchable power in Texas. And so it's going to be very interesting in that state to see what's happening in the House.
Mhm.
What is SIA doing in those for situations like that, and what we're also facing in Illinois and in Oklahoma to help at the local
Yeah.
level?
So SIA has a big state affairs team. It's actually the portion of our organization that we spend the most money on, and we have the most people in because there's 50 of them instead of just one federal government. But we identify about 15 priority one states. So those are the states that have usually a staff person, outside lobbyists, and usually an outside regulatory attorney, so that we can be active both in the legislature and in the state commissions. Um, Texas, without not surprisingly, is a huge area of focus for us. It's the number one solar market in the United States, the number two solar manufacturing market. And so last fall, we hired a person on the ground in Texas to be the SHIA representative in Texas. We have a lobbying firm. We have an outside comms firm. We have another consultant. I've been there twice in the last couple of months, lobby day and other things to build this story, right? It is one of those weird situations in which if it was only based on kind of the strength of the industry and the strength of the development and the pipeline, like we really there wouldn't even be a debate, right? Because it's so clear that solar and storage are making such a huge impact on the Texas economy. But in some ways, perhaps that's our challenge, is that it's so clear that solar and storage are making such an impact on the Texas economy that there are a lot of folks that would like to stop us in our tracks. So we have done a lot of time, a lot of work in this. I call it the off season, right, in the non-legislative cycle, building relationships, building allies, doing all of the things you would want a lobbying firm to do, getting message testing and doing lots of polling so that we're not going into these legislative debates sort of empty-handed. We have a lot of data, a lot of polling, a lot of political ammunition. So I think we've always thought that the House would be where we'd stop bad bills in Texas. Um, I think, that's going to prove to be the case this year, but it's certainly far from over. So we have a lot of resources and a lot of energy there. Same with Illinois. Years of work and years of building infrastructure, building relationships. Oklahoma, I'll be honest, is not a priority one state for us, right? And so, but mostly because the industry hasn't prioritized it. Like we have this bucket of dollars, and we have to figure out where we're going to spend them. So we try to be
Well,
supportive of efforts in Oklahoma,
now
but we're
Oklahoma
not
is
leading
more
the
wind
charge.
focused, I would say,
Hmm.
than solar and storage. So that
Yeah,
tracks. I
yeah,
know from
yeah,
our perspective, at Dudley, we're landmen, right?
hmm,
That's what we do. We deliver energy through land.
yep,
And when there are there's legislation proposed like this, what we see from our clients a lot of times is hesitation
mm,
to begin new projects in those areas that this legislation could impact them negatively, right?
hmm,
So what you're doing, Abby, is so critically important because it doesn't just affect the larger companies. It doesn't just affect the manufacturers. It doesn't affect just our economy as a whole. It trickles down to every company, even like Dudley's, in the sense of these projects coming to fruition and
hmm,
creating work and creating jobs. And
yeah,
I think that that is what is most concerning to me right now is that it's become so polarized with solar and storage. And I don't want to pick on Texas, but we'll pick on Texas. It's
hmm,
become so polarized that, um, you're right. If you look at it from an economic standpoint of business and being proactive and supportive of the business model and the job creation and
right,
the trickle down effect of how good this would be, not only for our electric infrastructure and being able to support the grid as a whole, but for all of the other great benefits. It's a no brainer. And
Right.
so I don't understand why it's even an issue that this is not fully supported. And I'm so grateful that you're the one leading the charge to make it happen.
Well, thank you. And I think, the point you made about this trickle down effect is one that it's so important for legislators to understand, right? Because I wouldn't presume to know kind of what they have in their minds, but you could imagine they have sort of these like companies that were formed in California or maybe in New York, and they're coming to their state to upend their business models and upend sort of their culture of oil and gas. But when they hear like, no, 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 it's like tens of thousands of people that are Texans, for example, that are employed in this industry, and you are threatening their livelihood, and they are homegrown businesses and homegrown, the land owners that are getting rental payments and all kinds of benefits. Like that is a very different message than someone like me flying in from Washington, D.C. to say, I've come with the answer, right? Like that's not a particularly effective message. But what I'm good at is figuring out who the right messengers are and making sure
Right.
that their voices are being heard.
I was in oil and gas for 2 decades. I'm a multi-generational landman. I come from
Yeah.
Beaumont, Texas, which was Spindletop.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of oil on these foods, right? My
Yeah.
joke amongst myself is that I spent so many years. I'm 45, so if I can like end my career in renewables, then maybe I'll like carbon offset myself. you know, um, I am a Texan, and I actually live in Lewis's district. I live in Shiner, Texas, and so it's interesting to me that there are people like me. There's a lot of people are like
A
me
lot of
around.
people like you.
There seems to be a group think
Yeah.
also, or people that are afraid that will have conversations with me privately that they support renewables or they support wind and solar and storage, um, and they don't speak up in the overall. And that makes me sad as a Texan because I think that one of the things that we've done really good at as a state is supporting business overall
Mhm.
and trying to make sure that we are having a diversification of energy. So tell me on the national level right now, because you just did your testimony, right?
Mhm.
How did that go for you?
It was good. It was in the case, sometimes we call it Solar 3, right? It's about like tariffs coming in on products from Cambodia, Vietnam, Thailand, and Malaysia. And so that's where the vast majority of our cell and modules are being imported from to the extent we're importing them. So it's incredibly impactful. Um, I find one of the things that's always challenging is when you're in these very circumscribed regulatory settings that are set in time, right? There's a period of inquiry, and it was a while ago. And our industry changes so quickly, and supply chains change so quickly that sometimes it feels a little challenging to kind of convey the urgency of the moment with this very circumscribed process. But um, but the really amazing thing was that we had a number of domestic manufacturers uh, in the room objecting to placing tariffs on products, right? So they have made decisions to invest in the United States. They have like hundreds of millions of dollars here, and they still don't want tariffs, right? They still want free trade, fair trade, but free trade. And so that was an interesting perspective to hear.